there's some really simple principles here. Go out, smile, enjoy the game of football, and do it because we love this game, because we played it growing up. With that in mind, it's difficult to always have that mindset, especially when you're faced with injuries and you've encountered your fair share of injuries. What are the most difficult injuries? What are the most difficult periods? What have you learned through those? And in particular, I'd like to talk about injuries with no light at the end of the tunnel, no, like a lot of uncertainty. There's no, I'm definitely going to be back in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is. I know you've experienced a couple of injuries where it's hard to keep upbeat because it's a long-term injury and you don't know when the end is going to come.
And to be honest, there are no better or worse injuries. Like, all of the injuries are not nice, but I definitely agree on, it's easier to go through an injury where, this ligament will grow back probably in 2 to 6 weeks. And, at this time, you might be back playing when there's not something special turning up all of a sudden. Whereas I suffered from a cartilage injury and cartilage pain basically in my knee, and that's something completely different, because you don't know, actually, you don't have a timeline, you don't have that certain date in your head where I'll do this step, and this step, and in 4 and 6 and 8 weeks, months, whatever, you're back playing, you're back on the pitch. And I think not seeing this light at the end of the tunnel is the worst part. But also with for example, I had 2 ACL injuries, and you also know a little bit the timetable of an ACL injury recovery, right? It's still there. Every rehab is different, and I think it's really, I would say not. I wouldn't recommend it to go by these exact timetables, because everyone's healing differently, and I think that's so important to do it in your own speed and in your own tempo. Even if there might be people out there playing after 4.5 months after an ACL injury, for example, it might not be for everyone, definitely not. And what I've learned was taking your steps in your own time without rushing and without looking left and right. You have to find your own way through that. And yes, I agree, especially at the beginning of injuries when you're in pain and you can't do a lot. I was suffering a lot at these times, because you couldn't get rid of your energy, basically. You couldn't move. You couldn't do what you like the most. And that's also like a hard session where you just feel tired afterwards, and not having that anymore is really, it's painful as well, right? Mentally. And I think what we said earlier, you can trick your brain a little bit by just smiling and trying to be positive. And all of a sudden you believe it. You believe it's not that bad. And sometimes you need someone as well around you that just sits you down. At least it was with me like this, and says, look, you're still healthy in a certain way. You still have a great life. You have a hard time, yes, but you have to make sure you go through there with the best possible mindset, and don't let it get too much to your head. And all of a sudden you find again the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's not just focusing on the 8 months, it's focusing on each week, focusing on little steps, like these little, setting your goals, but in shorter steps. I think that's really important, because you actually have little, moments of success, even in a recovery or even a rehabilitation. And I think that's important, that people also show you the positive sides you're just going through. And I think it's everyone is dealing really different with it. For me, it was always the best thing to take it positive, and to have positive people around me as well.